welcome to another deep dive devotional. And we're going to talk about the Psalms today. So we're going to look at Psalm 67, and specifically I want to talk about a word that you find in Psalm 67, but in several other Psalms and a couple other books of the Tanakh, or what we call the Old Testament. And so there's a word there called Selah. Now, Selah is an ancient word. We don't know exactly what Selah means or how it was used with the Psalms. So scholars debate this a little bit, but there's several terms in the book of Psalms that appear to be related to how people sang the music, how the choir master or the musicians would play music to go along with the chants or the recitation of the poetry that's in the Psalms. But these Psalms of praises, and in the original Hebrew, the book is referred to as praises, by the way, not songs. So these praises, how these praises would be communicated. So in Psalm 67, in the English Standard Version, it says, "May God be gracious to us and bless us and make His face to shine upon us. Selah. That your ways may be known on earth, your saving power among all nations. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you judge the peoples with equity and guide the nations upon the earth." Selah. So I read that, but if I go to a Jewish or Hebrew translation of the Psalms, "May God grant us grace and bless us. May He shine His face upon us." Selah. "To know on the earth your way, among all the nations your rescue. Nations acclaim you, O God. All peoples acclaim you. Nations rejoice in glad song, for you rule peoples rightly, and nations on earth you lead." Selah. So what does Selah mean? Well, Selah comes from a Hebrew root, and probably before that from something called Akkadian that you may or may not heard of, another ancient language. But it's like building up a roadway, building up a highway, to raise up, to extol. It comes from a root to build up. And so where it says to build up a highway in the desert, that's the same kind of root word. And so Selah is to raise up. And that's the way we interpret it. And many modern interpretations of the word is to raise up or to praise, to think a roadway to God, to think, let's think about what we just said in the psalm, what we just heard sung, what was this praise that was just established. That's a Selah moment. It's to take time and pause. And so oftentimes the musicians would continue to pray, the words would cease, but people would raise up their own praises, raise up, out loud usually, but it could be to yourself quietly, but they would raise up praises to God. And so a Selah moment, a Selah pause in the Psalms is where we would praise God. And it could be during worship. It doesn't have to be with a song that's in the book of Psalms. It could be in a worship song in a church service where they would pause, the musicians would continue, and the people in the congregation would sing their own song of praise out loud or in their own hearts, but sing a song of praise to God. That's a Selah time. And that's why musicians pause during praise and worship in modern churches, so that people can have their own time of praise and worship before God. And so this has been a deep dive devotional from Cross Timbers Church. Please come join us again for our next deep dive devotional or for a church service here in Valley View. Thank you.